dredged up the kind of industrial policies, price capping and dismantling firms, favoured in the 1970s. So a fresh set of ideas, set out in a speech by Ed Balls, the Shadow Chancellor, on June 30th, comes as a surprise. Put together, they might help provide British firms, especially small ones, with a much-needed boost. Since Mr Balls' proposals are mainly tax breaks, his first job is to fund them. He plans to cancel a corporation tax cut from 21% to 20% that was due in 2015. Although this tax levied on firms' profits would be higher under Labour, Mr Balls has promised to keep it the lowest in the G7. That gives headroom for future rises. Canada's rate is 26.5% and edges Britain away from its low-tax neighbour, Ireland. A range of sweeteners would ease the pain. The first is a cut in business rates, a tax based on the rental value of the shops, offices and factories from which firms operate. Mr Balls' planned cut would add to a list of existing breaks. Most charity stores, rural shops and farms are exempt, offering a lower rate on 1.5 million premises, or 80% of the total. Since business rates generate less than corporation tax, £26 billion compared with £40 billion, that's $61 billion in 2012-2013, the numbers should add up. Labour's other ideas are more radical. Under the current tax code, firms can deduct the interest they pay on their debts from their tax bills. The advantage of this tax shield is that it reduces companies' overall burden. Since investment in plant and machinery is often financed by borrowing, it can make expansion cheaper too. But it also creates an incentive for firms to pile up debt, which can be hard to repay in a downturn. This tax-induced bias can make businesses, including banks, brittle and unable to withstand shocks. To offset the problem, Labour is considering a new Allowance for Corporate Equity, or ACE, to mimic the tax break on debt. This would allow bosses to offset the costs of dividend payments against their tax bill. Tilting the scales like this should help make firms more resilient, since equity is elastic. Its value drops in downturns, and dividend payments to investors, unlike interest payments to creditors, can be cancelled. By making equity financing cheaper, the ACE proposal might also provide Britain's small and medium-sized firms with an alternative to bank loans, which are increasingly hard to find. A final tax break would encourage equity investors to take a long view. In 2012, a government commission found that short-termism among investors encourages bosses to prioritise quarterly earnings rather than longer-term plans such as research and development. To support long-term investing, Labour is mulling incentives for those who hang on to shares. Small firms will like these ideas more than big ones. Lowering business rates tends to favour smaller outfits because buildings represent a high proportion of their costs. Big firms stand to gain from the ACE, but that would be much less immediate than the threat of a tax hike.